Hello, I am George, and I'm an advanced Cicerone and a national ranked BJCP judge. I love helping people study beer, learn more about beer, get comfortable with what to order in terms of beers and or with food, that sort of stuff. So today I'm going to taste beer from a brewery that I enjoy quite a bit and tell you a little bit about it and perhaps what I would want to eat or do with this beer. So let's talk about this beer. This is a beer from Left-Handed Giant. It's a hazy pale, 4.5% alcohol. On the back here, they mention their brew pub. They make unfiltered lagers, crisp, sessionable beers. This hazy pale is a juicy, tropical, and refreshing thanks to a mouth-watering mix of Citra, Mosaic, and El Dorado hops, along with our characterful house yeast, and it mentions malted barley, oats, and wheat on the bottom. So I've already poured a little bit in my glass here, but let's top that off. So it's already poured a fairly persistent little off-white head. Color isn't matching perfectly on my phone here, but I would call that like a burnt orange or bergamot sort of color, and definitely hazy. You cannot see through that. And aroma right away has loads of tropical fruit, and tropical fruit, to be more specific, in this case, I'm getting pineapple and mango, papaya, guava, and I'm also getting some citrus notes. I'd say lime zest or lemon peel, and a nice little hint of cat piss, which is a terrible sounding description, but it's a description we use often with hops that are high in a particular sulfur compound for MMP. But if you smell something that smells kind of like cat urine or like tom cat urine or what alley cat, whatever, cattish, that's what's happening there. It's a compound that's found in some hops like this, Citra, Mosaic being among those. Simcoe would be another classic example of a hop having that kind of aroma. So not something that I would put like on a consumer description, but in a video like this where I'm talking with peers, with geeks who want to kind of dig into some description, okay, I would use that word. Maybe a more pleasant way would just say guava, because guava and papaya actually can have this somewhat unpleasant characteristic. If you cut into a fresh papaya, you'll kind of know that. It smells a little sulfury and almost trashy and like cat pissy. And so that might be a link that you could use to sort of mask that language. But I digress. So go back into this beer. Getting a little bit of this nice floral characteristic too. And the floral I would describe as perhaps chamomile, even like tea or like jasmine. But definitely tropical fruit is like the main star of the show. And in terms of yeast, I think we are getting some nice yeast characteristics supporting all of this. I think some of this pineapple and mango is coming from yeast characteristics or fermentation profile from their house yeast, and getting some pear and peach and apricot in there as well. So a really nice mix of, basically a fruit salad in liquid form, or at least in terms of the aroma. And overall, the hop aroma is medium plus. It's not, it definitely leaps out of the glass, but it's not, extremely high, and I don't get a lot of like either skunky or other flavors or aromas like that either. In terms of malt, I'm smelling a little bit of like raw dough, a little touch of honey, a little touch of like freshly baked dinner roll, but definitely lower in the background. The star of the show is definitely the hops, and then being supported by that yeast. So let's go into flavor and mouthfeel. So if I'm describing a beer to somebody, I'm thinking more about, how do I just like help them understand what's happening with this beer so that they can make a quick decision as to whether or not that's what they feel like in that moment. So I would just say that this beer has a nice medium body, but it's hop forward, has a lot of hop flavor, but it's low on bitterness. And again, I would describe that hop flavor as, that tropical, a little bit of citrus, but I would definitely say, tropical forward with a touch of citrus, touch of floral, and then supported by some nice yeast character. If I was describing this to someone who doesn't know a lot about beer, I may or may not point out the yeast character to them, because that might kind of confuse them as to like what that means. But definitely on a BJCP form, I would definitely want to make sure I'm mentioning that yeast character. and I would put it in that, medium low territory. Body, this is a nice fluffy mouthfeel. It feels kind of light and airy and kind of like cotton candy sort of texture, yet it's not sweet and cloying. It's not heavy. It definitely has a nice balance of dryness, so I'm not detecting a lot of residual sugar, so it's not cloying. But the bitterness is pretty low, so that gives me the impression that the sweetness is a little higher than it actually is. That just has more to do with the balance of the sweetness and the bitterness. And the carbonation level, from first sips there was like, I think in the medium plus. Let's try it again. Yeah, I'd call it medium to medium plus. When I swish, it like turns to bubbles, but those bubbles start kind of turning back into liquid pretty quickly. So for me, that's in my medium carbonation territory. If they stayed bubbles for a longer time, then I might go medium plus. Or if it made my cheeks like kind of poof up really kind of violently, then I would go high or very high on the carbonation. So that's just to kind of help explain like how this is being balanced pretty well in terms of having this like nice fluffy sort of light texture with low bitterness, but then the carbonation coming in to help balance it out, and that dryness, that dry finish helping kind of balance out that sweetness. Lingering on the back here is a little bit more of that like lemon pith is coming through from the hop character. So the kind of has this kind of grassy, greeny or green like hop material sort of lingering dryness. And usually when I'm thinking about food, I like to focus on, obviously like what are the main characteristics here? There's the, tropical fruit and citrus elements. So if I'm looking for anything that can complement or contrast that, that's really nice. So if I either had a dessert or some sort of curry dish or anything else that might implement some fruity elements into it, that could be a nice way to sort of complement. But I often think about like, what's the thing that's lingering at the end of the palate? That to me is, not always, but that to me sometimes is a place where I like to think of, as I take a swig of this and I have this lingering element, that's usually the part that if I want this to finish cleanly, what would I need to do in order to sort of eliminate that or balance that out? And if I have this lingering kind of grassy, slow bitterness and astringency, what would I use to help kind of pull that out? It could be some sort of creaminess, so that could come from some sort of cheese. This could come in the form of like a crumble of cheese, like goat cheese or something on a salad that maybe has some walnuts to help balance out those too, and maybe has some strawberry or some fresh mango on it, with some arugula to provide some bitterness too, because this doesn't have a lot of bitterness. Because the other thing, if I go creamy, whether it's like a Spanish tortilla or like a creamy brie or something like that, there might be too much creaminess that's going to cancel out the creaminess here. That could make the alcohol of the beer pop out more, or it might just be a fun thing that sort of blends, that kind of cancels out the creaminess of this and lets the fruitiness pop out more. So that's something you'd have to play with and look out for how that interaction goes. So in terms of like a main course kind of meal, or I would probably think of this going well with like a nice salad, like a Waldorf with, again, using some sort of fruity element, some sort of nutty element, some sort of like cheese or creamy element. And if it was goat cheese, that little bit of like acid might be a cool way to balance some of the creaminess in the beer itself, but something to play with. And then in terms of desserts, cheesecake, especially like a nice like Spanish style cheesecake or like Basque style cheesecake could be a cool way to go. They always have that nice creamy, kind of almost runny texture to the cheesecake. Usually they don't have that crust on there, so that could be a good thing. Or that crust might be a nice way to sort of pull in some more maltiness. So again, just kind of things to play with here. But I wouldn't go too fatty with this because there's not a lot of bitterness to help cut through the fat. And yeah, I would probably try to keep it pretty delicate overall. That's why kind of salad is the main thing that's sticking out for me. But definitely a delicious beer. I do love, so far everything I've had from this brewery has been, a good, I was going to say a home run, and then I was like, I don't want to say home run, but I'll just say a home run. Or at least, a solid double, like a solid base hit. I don't know. I'm not going to go with baseball analogies, so we'll stop that. But yeah, nice, easy drinking beer. It's in my alcohol range that I really enjoy. That 4.5% range is perfect for me. Loads of flavor, loads of like body and character. It's interesting. It's not boring. Yet I can have this and enjoy it, and then grab another beer and either repeat it because it's so delicious, and I would definitely repeat it, or explore something else on the menu board without feeling like I'm already kind of had my alcohol fill for the day. Because I enjoy drinking, but I don't enjoy getting drunk too fast, right? So all right, I'm rambling here. So I think that's a good time to end it. Thanks again. If there's a certain beer you'd like me to do, or a certain series of beers you'd like to see, just let me know. Leave a comment in the section down below. Like, subscribe. If you want to go on a beer trip with me, go to georgeyesgeorge.com, and I have started programming week-long 5 to 7 day-ish trips around Belgium, and then we'll start adding trips around Germany, and eventually we'll do more and more, but my goal is to do several of those a year. And it'd be a great way we can sit and do this in a more consistent and fun basis while we explore different regions and different breweries, and get to taste beer and food from the region at the same time. And that sounds fun, right? So have a nice day. I will see you next time.